The Anoka Hennepin School District has lost 8 students to suicide in the past 2 years. CNN's Anderson Cooper spoke to bullied and harassed students from that school district. Now, again, I'll be warning you throughout this particular segment that some of this language is difficult and offensive, so beware. Watch.
They call me faggot, fag boy, gay man, gay boy, gay, and it's frustrating and sad at the same time.
I was walking down the hall and you get shoved and you feel like they just think you're a piece of garbage that they can just throw away. And it makes you feel powerless, weak, and defenseless. And then when you tell a teacher, they won't stop it.
Some parents and some educators maintain they do not want homosexuality discussed in the classroom. They say the district's current policy should stand.
We were a model for the nation in protecting kids from classroom homosexual propaganda. The sexual orientation curriculum policy is an excellent policy.
The district's new policy would require teachers to withhold their personal views during classroom discussions on what are called controversial topics like homosexuality. The new policy sounds just like the old policy. Joining me to discuss this, Sarah Warbelow, the state legislative director of the Human Rights Campaign supporting gay rights. Candy Cushman is a spokesperson for Citizen Link, an advocacy arm for the conservative organization Focus on the Family. Steve Perry, CNN education contributor. Steve, okay, help me out. Help me navigate through these waters, my friend. Categorizing homosexuality as controversial already is putting it in a negative context, right? What are your thoughts on this whole controversy?
Drew, one of the things that's most important to realize is that our children exist in the real world. And more important than teaching them what to do is how to deal with the world at large. They're going to deal with people who are gay, straight. They're going to deal with people who are Muslim and Christian, atheist and otherwise. Our job as educators is to tell these children that the world is big and beautiful and that they can embrace diversity and not choose a side simply because they're learning about it.
Candy, I want to go to you. Is this... I don't want to dilute this topic or make it even more confusing, but it feels to me like this is an offshoot on the, and again, Steve is saying it's about embracing diversity, which I don't see how people can argue with that, but it feels like what really is happening here is that this is an offshoot on the controversy surrounding sex education generally. Would you say that's accurate or not?
Well, I would say one thing we should all be able to agree on is that we all want to protect kids. We want to protect their physical well-being. We want to protect every child from bullying and harassment, including those that are gay and lesbian. But we also want schools to be a safe place and a refuge from the over-sexualization of children that we see happening in this culture. We want them to be able to come alongside parents and protecting children's innocence as long as possible in this culture. And so we believe both forms of protection should be addressed in the public school environment.
Sarah, I'm going to ask the same question to you. I can't disagree with what either of my guests have said so far, but we're sort of avoiding the question I'm kind of asking here, which is this just an offshoot of the controversy about sex education and about teaching the kids about the realities of sexuality?
No, it really isn't. Sex education is something very different from teaching anti-bullying. Anti-bullying curriculum can address the fact that there are students who are lesbian, gay, and bisexual in the classroom, talk about complex families, families with 2 moms, 2 dads, families in which there's a grandparent-headed household. All of these are things in which kids get bullied for and need to be addressed in the classroom. It's very, very different than talking about explicit sex with children.
Okay. So, Sarah, I want to make sure I understand you, because I think you're making the distinction for me, which is you're saying that talking about diversity but excluding the topic homosexuality would leave that particular group of kids open to more bullying. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. By telling them that their sexual identity is a controversial topic, something that can't be addressed in schools, you're just further marginalizing these children.
Candy, help us address that. Do you agree with what she's saying here, or what would your response be?
Well, my understanding is that this particular school district already has several anti-bullying policies in place that specifically address sexual orientation. So it just raises question about, the implementation of what's already on their books. But I would say the parents that we hear from, they just simply want to have the right to determine how, when, and if their children are exposed to explicit and specific teaching on controversial sexual topics. And I would say that, you know, a lot of these lessons that homosexual activist groups are promoting for use in the school under the title of anti-bias actually are sexually explicit. And just to give a specific example of that, I've got a book here, Queer 13, which is promoted by one of the largest homosexual activist groups in the nation, GLSEN. And I've read this book, and it has one of the most explicit descriptions of interactions between a 13-year-old boy and an adult stranger that I've ever come across. And I just think, you know, this is being promoted, or has been promoted to educators as an anti-bias lesson, and that's what parents want to know about and have the right to exempt their children from.
Steve, you're the educator. Again, it seems like we're going back and forth here between this issue about diversity versus sexual education. Help me.
This is not an issue about diversity. This is an issue about sexuality. And these are individuals who don't want to have a conversation in the public schools about gay people. We have 3 openly gay teachers. They are teachers first. Their sexuality is inconsequential. If they don't do their job, they're going to be unemployed, gay teachers. My job is to make sure I create an environment where all children can feel comfortable. But what we're having an issue with here is having a conversation about sexuality and homosexuals. For instance, one of our teachers did a lesson on homosexuals during the Holocaust. That's an important topic, to show that it was yet another group who had been gassed because of their sexuality, or because of something that differentiated them from another group. We need to begin to have honest conversations about the fact that homosexuals are very much a part of our community, and they're very much a part of every day. This is not about, homosexuality does not equal explicit sexual conversations. The two are polar opposites. One has nothing to do with another. Simply saying that someone is homosexual and has a job as an attorney or as a talk show host or whatever else it is that they do doesn't mean that we're having an explicit conversation. Drew, you are right. This is an offshoot from the conversation around sex.
Steve, well, let me interrupt you. One last question. Why are people so scared of this topic? And so I'll give you guys, Sarah, a chance to talk when I get back. But why?
I actually have to believe.
Oh, Sarah, I'm sorry. Sarah's got to leave. I got to give her a chance too. So, Steve, you to answer that question for me, and I'll have Sarah respond, and we'll get out. Go ahead.
I actually believe that there are some people who genuinely don't want their children picked on, and they think that if they push what they think is pushing by exposing children to sexuality, that they will somehow become homosexuals, and that will somehow create a more uncomfortable environment for their child. I think that's the best part of it. The other side is it's just bigotry. Some people are just against people who are different than them.
Sarah, final word to you. Then we got to go.
The other part of this is people understand is that children aren't being targeted just because of their sexual orientation, but also because of perceived sexual orientation. By having in place strong policies that protect all kids and explicitly tell teachers that they must protect kids, you could be protecting your own kid or the child next.